In the continent of Gaia a few years ago, monsters suddenly started disappearing. At first he thought they were disappearing, but after investigating, it turned out they weren't. All the monsters that disappeared have moved to another dimension, while traveling between dimensions, coveted by many wizards. And now he knows why this phenomenon happened to the monsters, but now that it has helped him in his research, it doesn't matter so much anymore. The wizard had done his job and was saying that the coordinate setting was complete, the magical connection was perfect. After finally creating a magic circle, he stretched his arms towards the ceiling. It was a great fortune for him to be able to use this dungeon called the Great Labyrinth. If one used the magic power of this place, it wouldn't be difficult to cross the dimensions. The wizard immediately shouted out that he was on his way. As he went through the portal, he didn't realize where he was actually going to go. But he made up his mind and got his wish. As he flew through the air, he realized that the airflow and temperature had changed. This must be a success. But he stopped abruptly and looked around thinking, had the dungeon just crossed a dimension? But the portal was on the other side, in the room of a guy who was looking at the big circle and wondering what it was. The next day in the big city, the guys were walking down the street. The girl asked her friend, "Isn't there Junappa cool?" The friend replied that he was the best of the best. A kid named Kong Jin Hyuk, a D-rank hunter, thought that being able to focus on something with passion looked good. Heck said that such luxury was already too much for him. He asked his friend why he was so stunned, but the guy replied that they had to hurry. They weren't even halfway through yet. Heck said he was coming. They got in the car and the guy told Huck that he was doing a good job, and they should take a break for a while. But he asked the guy if he was cold in this weather. Heck replied that he was a hunter. Had the boy forgotten that hunters were good in both heat and cold? The guy was surprised and asked, "D-rank 2, is that it?" Heck replied that fortunately it is. Thanks to that, his heating bill is less. The guy said he was jealous of him. However, why would a hunter work part-time at a place like this? Heck thought about why and replied that he didn't have any money after all. The boy said that it would be nice if the guild loosened its monopoly. Heck replied that these guys are really obnoxious. The situation has gotten worse lately. He just can't live like this. Why is it like this? What happened between the guilds? Heck replied that a month ago, the psycho killer had gone completely insane, pursuing the idea of catching and killing hunters from the big guilds. Does Heck mean to say that these people are taking their anger out on someone else because they failed to catch the killer? Heck didn't hold back and replied that that was correct. The boy was surprised and said that the more he learned, the crazier they seemed to him. Heck replied that he meant the same thing. But suddenly something happened, and the guy asked, "What was that sound? Hadn't the concert started?" Heck looked around and replied that it sounded like a scream. Immediately he rushed over to look. The guy got really scared and asked where he went. Heck ran at the call of the scream and thought it was a call for help. It could be terrorism or the appearance of monsters. But if it is a monster, it must be destroyed. At this time, people were running out of the building and shouting for help. The people were greatly frightened and did not even try to fight them, for they realized that they would be killed. Heck at this time got very excited and considered it a big chance. He immediately opened his inventory. Applying his abilities, he pulled out his magic bat from his inventory. And then his acquaintance came running to him and asked him if he needed help. After all, he has been practicing a lot lately, so he would be useful. Heck replied that there was a special wavelength around monsters, so he was invulnerable to the attacks of ordinary people and even ordinary weapons. And the only ones who can ask for a wave are hunters like him who are given the proper characteristics. Tell the guy not to do anything stupid and to stay away. The guy was surprised at this answer and replied that he got it right, and let Heck be more careful with them. Heck slowly made his way through the crowd to the monsters and thought that before the big guild guys came, he should finish the hunt. He immediately ran and said that even if you catch the smallest ones, you won't have to worry about money for a whole year. A guild hunter suddenly appeared beside him and told him to get out of the way. The hunter stopped Heck abruptly, and with a motion of his hand threw him back so he wouldn't get in his way. Heck was greatly distressed and realized that they had already arrived. The guild in charge of this area is Titan. This hunter, who was the deputy leader of the Titan guild, named On Duyun, told Hyuk not to think about it and to get out. Heck said they'd get all the cream, as usual, and he came here first. Yoon asked him, "So what?" Heck was surprised and asked him, "Where is it written about this?" Yoon replied that of course it has no legal force whatsoever. But then it works the other way around too. Hek got angry and asked him what is he talking about. Yoon replied that the guy just told him that he came first, but where in the law does it say that the first one is the owner? And had the association ever made such a rule? Hek asked him what was his delusional logic. Hek didn't dare such disrespect in his direction, and attacked Yoon, shouting for them to be more modest. Yoon was ranked above the kid, and easily dodged the attack and punched from the palm of his hand. Yoon looked at him angrily and said how dare a piece of trash like him, and let him listen. If he crossed his path one more time, he would say goodbye to his life. Hek thought that Yoon's strength and speed, he was superior in everything. Taking the bat in his hands, he decided that there was no difference between a D-rank hunter and a hunter from a big guild at the tyranny of the big guilds, but all he could do was go to another part-time job to scrape together some money because he was a powerless D-rank hunter. And so after his part-time job, he had a lot of thoughts. He felt like he wanted that psycho killer to kill everyone in the Titans Guild. But the thing that struck him the most was this was his weakness and this deep sense of defeat. Dropping his head on the couch, he felt his cheeks still numb. But suddenly he turned around and heard a strange sound. And then a portal opened in front of him. He pulled himself together and leaned against the portal and saw that there was something there. But suddenly the image of a goblin appeared in front of him. Hek stepped back from the portal with a startled look in the same second. He realized they were goblins and thought he had to get his weapon faster. But after a couple of minutes, he stared intently at the portal and realized they couldn't see him. He decided to test it all out with his body, and reaching into the portal he realized there was no slipper resistance. And after thinking hard, he came up with a dungeon in his attic. Hek sat down on the couch and pulled out his soda, wondering if his hunch was correct. This was clearly a dungeon that existed only as a concept. But suddenly he sighed, for the problem was that it had ended up in his room. But should he report it to the association? Or should he just hammer it out? The possibility of a dungeon has always been discussed, but never actually discovered. If you tell the association, they'll do an on-site investigation. And he's sure he'll be kicked out of his own house. Hek thought hard and realized what he had decided. And he'd rather keep it than give it to the damn association. But for a second he thought, can't these monsters come here? And that would have to be checked first. Hek stood in front of the portal, saying that with his abilities, he would only be able to catch 2 or 3 goblins. If more monsters came here, he might lose his life. After going through the portal, the system said he entered the dungeon. And the current location is the first-floor goblin maze. Hek went inside and said he couldn't believe it, but it's a real dungeon. Suddenly a goblin came at him from behind with his weapon, but Hek jumped into the portal to avoid being caught. The boy paused for a second, trying to calm himself, while the goblin swung his weapon at the portal. Hek thought and said, though no one else could come here, then there's no reason to be afraid. Swinging his bat at the portal without fear, he went to the other side and smacked it right on the goblin's head. The goblin couldn't handle him and fell back a few meters. Hek didn't leave it at that and continued to finish him off. The goblin was pretty disappointed, but the guy told him not to look at him like that. He was desperate too. Striking the strongest blow, but smashed the goblin's head into small pieces without even hesitating. And now, becoming a hunter, he went after a monster on his own for the first time. Just one, but sharing his experience with others. The level that hadn't changed in 3 years had increased. At best, he only caught 1 goblin. And now he realized once again just how serious the tyranny of the large guild's control over the hunters was. Those bastards had sold their conscience. Hek looked at the broken goblin and said that if you think about it, the bodies of these monsters could be sold for decent money. And the goblin's body is worth at least 3 million won. And he was really curious how much he'd get. Coming into town, he came to a building where all the people were selling. The manager asked him what he had come to sell. Hek immediately replied that he had come to give away a goblin. He moved it straight from the inventory to the buyer. The manager started looking at the body and said he thought the guy had a little experience as a hunter. Hek made no secret of it and replied that he was right. The manager told the guy that if he catches it that way, the value of the product is being served. Better aim for the vital points next time, and he wouldn't be able to pay more than 2 million won for such a body. Hyok immediately replied that he would serve for that price. So the manager agreed and told the guy to tell them where he caught this monster. He would confirm and make payment. Hek was very confused and asked, "Is it that big of a deal?" The manager replied that it was established by law, so there was nothing that could be done about it. Heck was thinking at this moment, what should he do? Should he say that it was the one who escaped from the Titan Guild area last time? The manager asked the guy why he was so worried. Even if he goes elsewhere, he won't get more. But suddenly someone in the crowd was asking about someone, and Heck immediately turned around to look. The people at this time asked, weren't they from the Black Dragon Guild? Who were they going to hit this time? The kid pointed his finger at Heck and said he thought it was him. The manager said at this time that they had found it. Heck got excited and asked what happened. The head of the gang walked up to the guy and asked, is that him? Heck didn't understand and asked back. The gang leader immediately grabbed his clothes and asked, was he the one who intercepted the monster from their zone? And then the manager said it wasn't who they were looking for. The guys grumbled and said, then who is it? And they saw a blonde guy talking in the corner. The head of the gang immediately walked up to the kid, and without saying a word, sent his fist straight into the guy's jaw. They stopped at this and started beating everyone in the room. The blonde man's friend asked them what they were doing. The hunter replied that the man was hunting on their guild's territory without permission. If he doesn't intend to compensate for that, let him stay out of it. The head of the hunters stopped his man and asked the blonde man why he was roaming their territory. Does he want to lose his life? The blonde man was badly beaten and didn't know what they were talking about. The head immediately grabbed his hair and said, did he know that in their day he could end up with a psycho killer at his fingertips? And they better do a little research together. Would the boy be okay with that decision? But Blondin insulted them and was immediately put out by the blow from the head of the hunters. The manager told them to just take the money and leave quietly. They are making ridiculous accusations. He told the guy if he wasn't willing to end up the same way, let him not even go near the place occupied by the guild. Heck asked him how he knew about this guild. The manager asked how. All guilds of a certain scale are connected to this server. Heck asked if the man knew and confessed to everything. The manager replied that if caught lying about the place, his hunting license would be confiscated for life and he would be sent to jail, so there was nothing more that could be done about it. Heck realized at once that he would almost get in more trouble. Heck took his goblin to his place and started to leave. The manager stopped him and asked him what he wouldn't sell and just leave. The boy replied that that was right, he had changed his mind. After all, he could have been dragged away with a beating too. You have to try hard not to be seen by guys like that, but they will also watch. He will become stronger in this dungeon, and it will end with envy in his direction. Late one night sitting at his house, he decides that he will enter the dungeon to become stronger. And of course, he prepares himself. Heck said he thinks he's taken care of everything that needs to be taken care of. We should take that too. The item is called Hearthstone, and it's worth 1 million, but when else to use it if not now? He said he was fooled by an advertisement that said he could find out the location of monsters anytime. The search radar was purchased for 400,000 fawn. In fact, it is garbage that can only detect at a distance of 50 meters in all directions. And yet for him, going into the dungeon alone, it's like an extra life. Heck immediately turned it on and said it seems to be working. 1 catch in 1 hour. Could it be a goblin? Upon entering the dungeon, Heck started knocking out all the goblins and said 1 first. The system immediately notified him that his level had been raised to 5. The guy judged that, as the name Goblin Maze suggests, all the monsters here are goblins. Although it's quite monotonous, for him, a low-ranked hunter, it's an optimal hunting place. After finishing destroying the goblins, Heck sat down for a while, taking a break, and decided to check how much he had leveled up. He immediately opened his stats window. Heck said that his level had increased slightly, but his other abilities were still bad. Heck humbled himself and said that he had a dungeon after all. From now on, he would be able to gradually increase his skills. Gotta take care of these guys and start hunting again. He immediately opened the inventory and closed it, but all of a sudden the system said it had 1 free space, and not enough space. Heck said he only had 1 space left. If it's the last one, it would be good to catch the big one. Heck opened his compass and saw that 9 o'clock was going alone. So he decided to catch 1 deer goblin. The guy looked around and decided that if he waited behind the wall and made an unforeseen attack, it would come out pretty easily. Heck understood that good positioning was 5 meters ahead. Suddenly the goblin's head came out and the guy made an attack with his bat. His helmet flew into the air, and he heard a strange sound. As he looked closer, he noticed that it wasn't a goblin. Heck approached the man and asked if he was all right. But the stranger started shouting at the top of his voice, in an unknown language. The guy asked him if he was a foreigner. Heck realized that this man was speaking a strange language. What country is he from? He looks angry, so we should apologize first. Heck bowed and apologized, saying he had no idea there were other people here. The stranger reached into his pocket and tossed an object into the guy's hands. Heck asked what it was. He examined the object and realized it was a necklace. He wondered why he needed it and decided to put it around his neck. The necklace abruptly began to sparkle. And the stranger asked the guy, "Now does he understand?" and started insulting him. Heck replied that he knew the man was angry, but it wasn't much. The stranger couldn't stop and grumbled. The guy apologized once more. The stranger tells the guy to go fuck himself. This is the first time he's seen a guy like this in all his 132 years of dwarven life. Heck, hearing that he was a dwarf, was surprised and thought, aren't they a race known as blacksmiths? It's hard to believe, but the creature in front of him looks exactly as he imagined. And these were the things the gnome dropped. He picked up a dog from the ground, and the system said he picked up a rare item. Heck immediately realized it was a rare item. The gnome asked the guy what he was doing. Tell him to give it back quickly. Heck was frightened and replied to let him have it. Heck thought that even if he was a dwarf, his level would be high if he had such equipment. He would stay out of it and go his own way. The gnome ordered the boy to put the item carefully in the bag. Heck obeyed and put it in, while the gnome was fixated on something else. Heck said he put it all together and asked the gnome what he was doing with his bat. The gnome answered nothing and examined the object. The gnome asked the guy where he got that. Heck asked, "What do you mean?" The gnome replied that it was an alacharkan. It's a very common metal on Earth, and the material of his only hunting weapon. That's all he knows about aluminum. But for some reason this gnome can't even buy it for hundreds of millions of dollars. He says it's the legendary alacharkan, and the gnome told him that he had invited him to his workshop to see how to handle this bat. He said he declined, but he said he would trade her for the rare items he had made, and Heck followed him. However, forgetting about all those rare items for a second, why did this gnome set up a workshop in such a dungeon and live alone? Heck said it had been a while. What was the gnome doing in there? It was just aluminum. Maybe he chooses his weapons ahead of time. The guy got tired of waiting and started to worry. And then the dwarf came out and said he was done. Let him ignore it and just take it. The gnome said it was insignificant compared to this bat. Heck picked up the object and asked, "Is this definitely his bat?" The color turned red. The dwarf replied that it was a feature of oricharkan. Dumbass. Though it is a soft and light metal when simply used, the more it is enchanted, the redder and stronger it becomes. Heck listened to the gnome carefully and pondered what kind of enchantment we were talking about regarding his item. The guy started swinging his bat and realized one thing. Enchanted items were only obtained from a rank monsters and above. Turned out to be a very rare item. He asked if it was his bat. It's very different. He wondered how such a thing could be artificially created. Who was this dwarf? And the dungeon finally brought good fortune into his life. Heck opened the characterization of this bat and saw that it had S-rank durability. It would be great to sell it all. Heck asked the dwarf what should he do. He already owns it, so he can't sell it. Does he understand correctly that such a bat is now his? The dwarf was surprised and started laughing. He told the guy not to worry. It's a reward for giving him such a good experience. No one but him can ever take advantage of it. Heck opened the inventory and said that after all, there was no money to be made from selling it. So he decided to look for other ways to make money. But first, he needs to sell those goblins. The problem is how to sell them to him. You can't sell them to the association because of the location. And then he remembered that there is a black market. There is also a black market in the hunting industry, where they get rid of bodies without asking where they came from, and their contact info is easy to get. They are always handing out business cards to low-ranking hunters who need money. Heck looked at his business card, and when he got there he said it seems to be here. And if you look at it, the business card looks very suspicious. A guy from the balcony asked him, "Mr. Kong Hyok, right?" The guy asked back, "Assistant Cho Hyan Il?" El told the boy to come up here. After all, his master was already waiting. And then Heck was glad that he had found this place and no one would come here. A man named Lee Chun-chul is an organ trader disguised as a loan business. He now sells and buys monster corpses. Chul asked if he could examine the goblin's body. Heck immediately opened his inventory. He didn't understand how that was. Confirmation right away without even saying hello to the person. Heck immediately showed them and put it in front of them. Al was greatly surprised and asked what. Al checked them and told the Lord that these 20 goblins were in good condition. Chul pondered in his head what had happened. Judging from his behavior, he was clearly a newcomer, and these goblins are in much better condition than he thought. Chul told the guy that the goods were confirmed. Heck replied that it was like that and asked 20 heads, right? Chul asked the guy what price was he thinking of. The guy showed his hand and replied, "How about 5 million for each head?" Chul replied that since the heads were badly damaged, he thought 3 million for each would be enough. El started to ask the Lord, who would want a head like that? These guys' clothes are so shredded they can't even be used as jewelry. El asked, so how much is it? Chul was immediately upset because the asshole had ruined his plan and wondered why he had brought him. Chul said he apologized and asked how about 3, 5 each. Heck immediately replied that he wanted 4, 5 and wouldn't sell for less. Heck said if they didn't like it, they could leave, and he'll look elsewhere too. But suddenly a man ran in and shouted to the gentleman that they were in big trouble. We have to run away quickly. Chul asked the guy what he was saying. Why did the monster come here? Hayek immediately thought and remembered that he had heard about it. There's a chance that monster corpses could attract other monsters. Heck asked Diel, is that really a real monster? Where is it? The boy replied that it was true. Suddenly, 2 orcs appeared. Heck wondered if he was at the level now to do anything about it. It wouldn't work that way. He'd have to get out of here first, but first he has to get the goblin bodies. But when he saw the light, he said it was too late. A large and green orc appeared in front of them, ready to tear them to pieces. Sheol told the guy that he was a hunter. Let him do something. Hayek said no and told him to make sure he didn't do anything for nothing. But suddenly the orc flew at him and Heck was surprised and realized that he could not dodge. And he didn't want to die in vain like that. Suddenly the inventory opened up and the bat used its powers and protected the guy from death. The orc immediately felt himself slipping a bit and stepped back. Chul asked Yil what's the 100 he's looking at now. The boy replied that he didn't even know. Heck thought at that moment what happened. Arbitrarily, the bat blocked the orc's attack. Could it be the effect of presence detection? And then the guy decided to give it a try. He took his bat in his hands and said he could act. And he started beating the goblin and the orc from different directions. Heck saw with each punch that the damage was done, and he can catch it. This bat is really cooler. The guy got very excited, because he was able to catch an orc, and in the same second, his level went from 24 to 36. And he was very surprised. Chul shouted to the guy the second he had a monster behind him. There's another orc. Heck dodged the attack and said that so suddenly. Heck launched an attack and told the orc that he was a coward. How dare he attack from behind? He's gonna go to his buddy too. After cutting down 2 orcs in one day, everyone else was surprised by his abilities. And the guy's level went up to 48. Heck himself couldn't believe that he had really caught 2 orcs. And his weapon was so powerful. El asked the Lord what to do now. Chul answered the bastard to keep quiet for a while. Heck immediately turned around and said that including only 2 captured orcs. Can we start negotiating again? Looking at his bank account saying he never would have thought they would charge 15% above market value. Is this a dream or reality? He decided to relax a bit and lying on the couch said that now everything was decided. All he had to do was hunt. A black market merchant named Chul, whom he had saved from the orcs, decided to continue doing business with him. He's probably not just a simple dude selling stolen bodies. He's now experienced enough to catch orcs himself. But if he wants to hunt higher-level monsters, it's impossible with the current weapons. And in that second something occurred to him. He jumped up from the bed and said with a smile on his face that it was decided. And now, if he succeeds, you can get the items for free. But you have to think about it a little bit. Heck bought a case of drinks and brought it to the dungeon. The dwarf asked the guy, does he say it's all for him? The gnome started looking at them and said that this can't be. It's all from Alacharkan. Heck answered him that there was alcohol inside. The gnome asked, is the drinking vessel made of Alacharkan? Is there holy water in it? Heck replied that no. The gnome immediately spit it out and asked what the guy had told him was beer and what Asinine had given him. Heck decided he should give him something stronger, but he took the second bottle and asked him if it was a bit bland. Thunder called the guy a bastard and said he was making him drink it. Heck replied that it's called soju, it tastes a little different. The gnome agreed and said that he would have a drink, but only one sip. He drank it and smiled and replied that it could already be called alcohol, but the taste disappointed him a little. He thinks it's okay if he drinks a little more. Heck asked, what kind? The dwarf said what it's all about. The guy needs to go and dig up something. Heck was surprised and asked what? The dwarf answered him straightforwardly that it was mithril. Heck listened to him, and on the way he said what he would do to get a weapon for free. But he paused for a minute and said that he knew mithril was a metal, but what did that have to do with soju? But he doesn't know that, so he decides he has to find it first. Walking for an hour in the forest, he wondered if it was labyrinthine. But there were plants here. The system immediately notified him that he had arrived on the second floor of the maze of dogs and skulls. Does he wish to record his current location at Warp Point? Heck was surprised and asked what it was, and should he accept? And immediately he accepted the offer. At the same second, a portal opened in front of him. The system said he could now go from floor 1 to floor 2 through this gate. Heck reached out and wondered if this was really real. It looks like a game. But anyway, the guy said he made the right choice, and he could use it on the way back. Heck wouldn't leave and decided to go. Once inside, he said it was called a maze of dogs and skulls. A real dog jumped out, but Heck wasn't scared of him and was confident. He immediately hit him with the bat and told him she was a noisy thing. The system immediately told him that he had gone from level 48 to 49. Heck asked, are they that much weaker than an orc? But looking in the distance, he saw a pack of dogs pointing in his direction. But that didn't scare him. Heck smiled at that and said that meant he'd get tons of experience, and started smearing all the dogs left and right. After finishing all the dogs, the system notified him that he was up to level 74. The guy was very happy and said that the level was increasing smoothly. The guy opened his inventory and said that considering the price of the kobold's body, he had already earned over 200 million. Heck started to get very excited and laugh, saying that the money was pouring in. But then the dwarf appeared and asked him where he had gone for so long. Heck immediately remembered that the dwarf had asked him to fetch mithril, and now he had to find it and come back. Walking into the room, he said, I think it's here. But then a pack of skeletons jumped out at him. Heck was a little surprised and asked, are those skeletons? But he remembered that this maze is called Dogs and Skulls. He realized that there was no money to be made from skeletons. But he started to fight them and he was getting a little annoyed. A skeleton suddenly jumped out and used a sword to fight. But Heck suddenly repelled its attack, and then he remembered, to kill a skeleton you have to destroy the core. As he looked around carefully, he saw the core. He didn't waste any time and went straight for the core. But he stopped abruptly and asked, when did this guy show up again? But he saw that there were getting to be a lot of them, so he decided to try it once. So he went to the center of the skeletons with his bat and destroyed them all. Heck is pretty tired of fighting like this and says it's an excuse for him to have a drink. He thinks the goblin will be too lazy to go, so he'll order one for himself. The system didn't let this go unrewarded and said the guy has reached level 100 and can now change class. And his class is determined automatically based on his recent actions. Heck was surprised and said he was already that level. Maybe he should change to warrior, he thought, but at the same moment something occurred to him, and he decided to become a priest. And the system honored his request. Heck came to the goblin and tossed the sack and said that these mithrils he had asked for. The dwarf was surprised and thought to himself that he wasn't even completely fine. The gnome said he thought the guy was going to die in there, but he's okay? Heck asked, can't he see he's barely alive? The gnome started laughing and said, how so? It's not such a hard thing to do. Is that all the mithril that was in there? Heck thought it looked expensive, so he secretly took some. The dwarf said this maze was useless, so he decided to make a weapon to begin with. Is there a function that he particularly needs? Heck replied that he has an offensive weapon, so a defensive one would be handy. He thought it would be better if it was discreet. The gnome looked at the guy and said, that's easy. Everything will be ready soon. Heck went to his house and fell asleep, as he was very tired. But suddenly his phone rang. Heck got up and said he had slept for 6 hours and felt light. But it was hot in the workshop and he was tired, so he went to bed. It's a good thing he set the alarm clock. Are we all done yet? The gnome in sweat did everything and answered the guy that he was happy with the result. The gnome saw the guy come in and asked, "Where has he been and where is he going? There isn't anything else around here after all." Heck replied that he had just wandered around a bit. Heck saw the item on the table and was surprised. The gnome said it was his armor. It's for wearing inside, so it's inconspicuous. Let him make it up. The guy picked up the armor and thought, incomprehensible at first glance. We should try it on. The gnome asked the guy if he tried it on. Heck replied that he did, and at the same second the dwarf launched a sledgehammer attack on the armor. Heck was surprised and asked what was so sudden. The gnome replied to get him to stop talking. And how is his armor? What is the durability of the chainmail? Heck replied that he was so surprised. Really nothing hurts. The blow should have broken his ribs, but they are all fine. With this armor and bat, his power will increase many times over. And he was so very lucky to meet this gnome. The gnome asked the guy if he liked it. Heck replied that everything was fine and thanked him for his help. The dwarf turned around and said no thanks. And in return he gave the boy a barrel and told him to take it. Heck asked him, "What is it?" The dwarf replied that it was called that. Immediately the boy took it and went home. Heck sat down at the table with the keg and poured himself a drink, saying that it was really good. That's what he understands, real alcohol. The boy wondered and asked, "How did soju get that flavor?" He remembered the dwarf saying that pouring alcohol into a mithril barrel would enhance the flavor. Even in such a crappy drink, Heck was quite surprised, because soju becomes a completely different drink just by being in that barrel. Heck called his black market buyer. Chul asked the guy what he had. The guy replied that he called since he had an item to sell. Chul was surprised and asked, "Really? What monsters' bodies this time?" Hayok replied that he had kobold bodies and alcohol. Chul was surprised and asked, "Alcohol?" At this time, at the 20th gate of the Titan Guild, there was a new hunter training area. People said that this was the end of the battle for the new members of the Titans Guild. And now the new recruits would collect the corpses. But suddenly a guy ran in and yelled to the deputy that they had a big problem. The lizards are coming again. The deputy thought it was strange, and why are they coming now? And it seems to him that there are 3 times as many as they just caught. The hunter asked the man in charge what would they do. Would they not be able to handle this many on their own? Let him quickly seek help from other hunters. The head thought it was a mockery and was not willing to put it in the wrong hands. For the sake of the Titan Guild and his prestige, he must stop them with his own forces. The head replied to the guy not to sound like a wimp. They would handle it on their own. Let him come to his senses and stop them. Coming to the guild manager congratulated the guy on his promotion and said it's a class that uses healing skills, right? And it's a rare class. Heck took his papers and thanked him. He was very happy because he got a promotion. It was said that guilds hired healers even if they were just treating from afar. But suddenly the doors opened and the wounded hunter asked if there was a healer available. Heck raised his hand and saw that this was really happening. He asked the hunter if it was okay if he only had a C rank. The hunter replied that of course and offered to go now. Heck thought at that moment, did he really have a better rank than he thought? At this time, the hunters were fighting the monsters, but their forces were a level below and couldn't cope. The deputy helped the guys avoid death and told them to pack up immediately. Or do they want to die? The head said that the others are like trash because they only believe in Suman. The head pounced on the monsters and told everyone to stick together. He will destroy them all. Seeing this, the deputy yelled to the head not to do that. While Heck arrived to help and seeing this thought, Hunter asked Heck to just do as they did. Heck asked if there was anything else he could do to help. The hunter replied that all they needed was to give them strength. Let him not be afraid. They would take care of everything when they were done. Heck knew it was dangerous. Well, it didn't matter to him as long as he got paid. The boys started to fight and felt energized. The next hunter turned to the healer and said he needed strength too. Heck told the healer that there was no end to this. Better to contact another guild and ask for help. The healer replied that he thought so too. Heck realized that if things continued like this, they might be destroyed. Unexpectedly, he felt a monster attacking him from behind, but the bat immediately jumped out and repelled the attack. And the attack begins to come from behind, while the healers are all in the area. And that's when Heck decided he had to stop them. Heck shouted that there was a surprise attack from behind. The healer asked, "The monster is here from where?" "This is a big problem." The guy replied to them that it was fine. Let them focus on healing for now. He's gonna stop these guys. The healer asked him, "What do you mean he's gonna stop them? Isn't he as much a priest as they are? Let him ask for help for the Guild of Titans first." Heck replied that no, let them watch. After all, it's hard for the Titans to manage on their own. The guy was yelling at them not to worry. He's doing it because he's confident. Heck thought at the moment of the battle that even though he was worried at first, it had turned out better than he had thought. The guy started slaying all the monsters and at one point wondered if it was worth it. But suddenly he saw one of the monsters attacking the healers. He chased after it and told it not to let its guard down. He caught up to the monster and launched an attack asking where he was running to. The monster wasn't so simple and threw an arrow out of his hand right at the guy. Hoping he would die, Heck turned around and asked him if he was surprised that the attack didn't work. And attacking him killed him with one blow. The healer was surprised and asked how a healer could be capable of this. Amazing. How does he defeat them? The guy told the healer, thanks to him they could focus on healing in peace. Heck wondered why the lizards were suddenly acting like this. But in a moment he saw the light of a sword, and a man emerged from the monster. This guy's name was Seo Chan-ho, and he was the leader of the Titan Guild. He asked Hyok, was he the one who took care of them? Heck replied that it was him. When the healers saw Sang-ho's S-rank hunter, they were overjoyed and Heck asked who he was. Isn't he the leader of the Titan Guild? It was safe to go home now. Ho headed out to fight and said it was urgent, so we can talk later. They'll make it up to him for sure. Heck realized that it was a Sang-ho hunter. He knew that S-rank hunters are strong. It's clear at a glance. He is perfect. He is a monster. Ho arrived at the center of the battle and told his hunters that everyone did well. The deputy asked how he knew that. The guy replied to him as he called out to him. There was nothing wrong with asking other guild members for help. Ho said that those who have run out of strength should stand down. He will now lead the takeover. He immediately swooped down and told the others, if he understood, to get out of the way quickly. Ho used his energy and made an attack from afar on the ground, and automatically the monsters were trapped. The hunters said it was amazing. He had defeated such monsters single-handedly. There's a reason why he's S-class. Heck saw all of this and thought that he bypassed the allies and only destroyed the monster. He thought he was pretty strong too. But here's who's really strong. Ho wiped out everyone and said that was the end of the hunt. Let them check the body count and take care of everything. Ho immediately grabbed the deputy and said he was an asshole. What was he thinking when he tried to figure it out on his own? Was he planning to die with everyone together? Yoon replied that asking others for help in such a situation would ruin the guild's reputation. Ho said it's not about the guild. He thinks Yoon just didn't want to tarnish his reputation. Yoon said the head's words were too harsh. Ho lost his temper and was ready to destroy him. But one of the hunters turned to the leader and apologized. Hunter said to send away the healers who helped today. Ho told Yoon that they weren't finished, and they'll make a deal when they get back to the guild. Ho went up to the healers and apologized, and said that it was thanks to them that their guild members were unharmed, and especially this guy. He saw how the guy handled a lizard ambush single-handedly. He's got very good skills. But can he recognize his name? Heck immediately did not hesitate and introduced himself. Ho asked him if he was a member of a guild. The guy replied that he wasn't yet. The leader asked then how about his guild, and they wouldn't require a fee to join. Yoon immediately intervened in the conversation and asked the leader, what did this mean? This guy was still a low-ranked hunter not too long ago. He remembers him. I guess he was just lucky enough to become a priest. But he's a long way from there. Ho immediately shouted to Yoon and said that if it wasn't for this guy, his men would have died. He's the one who saved a reputation that would have been lost because of his idiocy. Heck saw that the guild leader really cared about this. Ho told Yoon if he understood, let him go and apologize. Heck replied to the leader that he appreciated his offer but would decline. He would not be able to trust such a vice leader. Yoon didn't tolerate such disrespect and attacked him. But the bat suddenly appeared and hit him. Counselors read the news afterwards and asked the head, Will he not do anything even after such an article? Now we need to bring in this C-rank guy to refute it. What kind of resignation is that? Yoon may have made a mistake, but this punishment is unfair. And if the head keeps quiet, it will damage the reputation of the Titan Guild. Ho said that it wasn't that person who damaged the reputation, it was Yoon. Because of his authority, new recruits were almost killed because of him. Moreover, he even attacked a person who was helping their guild. He thinks that's a good enough reason to deny him the position of deputy guild leader. The counselors began to hesitate. Ho said to stop their nonsense. He proposes to close the matter at that point. Ho pondered that Heck wasn't just a C-rank hunter. Before he becomes even stronger, he must be pulled to his side. At this time, Heck was sitting in his house saying that he had made money and seemed to have bought too much. He had spent too much, but if he had known in advance, he would have gotten the extra reward when it was offered, and decided it didn't matter to him, since he had another source of income anyway. Coming to the portal again, he thought that the usual monsters he had caught before were no longer enough, especially now he was much stronger. And then Heck looked around and said he needed someone to help him. And as he ran through the maze, he saw that he'd gone pretty deep. But suddenly he turned around and heard a sound that sounded like a monster. And at the same second, an orc appeared in front of him. Heck wasn't scared and said what a jerk for deciding to attack from behind. The guy knocked him out at the same moment. The guy said the orc was just fine. And if he destroyed more of them, he wouldn't have to worry about money for now. Heck pointed his fingers at the orcs and told them to attack. It was time to make some money. The guy looked at his inventory and said that he could now kill 20 orcs at a time without any problems. And he thought he'd go a little deeper. As he walked down the stairs, he said that this must be it. I wonder what's waiting for him here. Looking around, he said the place looked like some kind of temple. The system popped up and informed the guy that he had arrived at the 3rd level in the Temple Protector's Maze. Heck rejoiced greatly and said he had come to the right place. He got curious and asked why there were no monsters in sight, or is this some sort of safe zone? But suddenly, all of a sudden, rocks began to crumble out of the ground, and in a second, a large hand came out. Heck said he knew it. There can't be monsters here, and even managed to dodge the attack. The guy started to defend himself and felt that this monster was special and very fast. Heck saw that he blocked it, but the monster broke free. What's the matter? Such power and agility. If he wasn't careful, it could be dangerous. When he took a closer look, he noticed that the monster's body was made of stone. Heck said he'd heard of such a thing, a monster created artificially. So he is a golem. Heck thought he was going to fight him and attacked. But judging by the fact that he thought he had fallen for a primitive deception, his intelligence was low. But his physical attributes are excellent, but his head is not. Heck destroyed him with his bat and said nothing would stop him from beating him. The guy calmed down after that and said it was no big deal, just that he was worried for nothing. But he saw that something was about to happen, for these stones began to reassemble themselves into one. Heck was surprised at this, for he could see perfectly well that he had smashed his head in and he was still alive. He remembered that this monster wouldn't die until he smashed its core. His mistake. He should retreat first and then think about strategy again. But suddenly another monster appeared and grabbed the guy's leg. But suddenly an arrow flew by and hit the monster. Heck immediately saw and realized that the core was in the middle of the chest. And then this one should be attacked in the chest as well. Heck handled it perfectly and said it was dangerous. If it hadn't been for that arrow, he might have died. But who had helped him, he asked. But maybe Devora's uncle had come downstairs? But in the dust he saw an image appear. He realized at once that it was not his uncle, but a girl. She had some strange ears. Could it be an elf? Heck bowed to her and thanked her for her help. But the girl grabbed him and said she was seeing him for the first time in this dungeon. She asked him who he was and where he came from. Heck was surprised and asked her what she was talking about. The girl asked him again, where does he consist? This is the first time she sees such clothes. How long has he been imprisoned in this dungeon? When did he come in here? Heck asked her to wait. Imprisoned? He came here today. The girl was surprised and asked him, is it true? Heck replied that he was answering her. The girl wondered and asked, is there an entrance to the dungeon? Heck didn't hide it and replied that of course there was. The girl replied that she understood and pushed him to the ground. The girl said that it seemed like she had finally found a way to get out of here. Heck got angry and asked what she was doing. The girl told him to escort her to the exit through which he had come in here. Heck thought at that moment, who is she that she's ordering him around? But she's quite beautiful. The girl said that naturally she would give a reward. She is a white gold rank mercenary. She can be trusted. Heck was surprised and asked, white gold rank mercenary. The girl replied that she was exactly that. She is the half-elf Lucia. Had he heard her name before? Heck replied that he had never once in his life. Lucia asked, really? She thought she was famous. But that didn't matter, and she introduces herself once more. Her name is Lucia. As he sees it, she is a mercenary of the white gold rank. Does he see her mercenary badge? Is that something he recognizes? Heck stared at her intently and asked her what it was. Lucia asked him, doesn't he recognize that badge? Did he come from a backwoods village? Where did he come from? Hyok replied that he was from Seoul. Where is she from? She hadn't heard of any elves living in Korea. Lucia hesitated and asked where is that located? For this was the first time she had heard such names. Had that crazy man succeeded in crossing over to another dimension? Lucia asked him one more question. Was this the first time he had come here today? Heck replied that no, he had been here several times before, which meant the crazy mage had succeeded in using the magic of traveling between dimensions. Heck asked her what she was talking about. Lucia replied that, to put it simply, it seems that this dungeon was transported to this world from another dimension, all because of one crazy mage. The guy asked, is such a thing possible? Lucia asked, and that's what she said. But that's a good thing. If he could travel between spaces, then he could come back. All he had to do was improve his magic techniques, for he had sensed that something was wrong here. Turns out that this dungeon is not from this world. And it would be to his disadvantage if the dungeon went back to its own dimension. Does she want to send the dungeon back to her world? Lucia replied that no, it wouldn't work now, although there was a possibility of that here. Is there a possibility? The girl replied that yes. There is a room on this floor that has something hidden in it. The guy asked in surprise, a secret room? Lucia replied that yes. She had accidentally found it when she was looking for a way back. Couldn't a guy help her? Heck asked her, what is it? Lucia replied, you have to kill the boss monster to get there. The guy asked why he should help her in such a case. The girl replied that she would tell him something important in return. She'll also give him the bounty on the boss. How would he like that offer? Heck thought about it and agreed that the terms weren't bad. Heck didn't hesitate long and replied that he would help her. And they began to fight the huge monster. Heck, during the battle period, he noticed that this girl is pretty strong. Lucia told the guy that he was stronger than she thought. The guy realized that fighting her would be disadvantageous. First, we should team up and see according to the situation. Continuing their long journey, Heck asked the girl, how much farther? Lucia replied that they were about halfway through. Heck grabbed his stomach and suggested to the girl that they rest for a while, especially since he was hungry. After all, there are no monsters here either. Lucia thought about it and agreed that they should take a break. Heck took the chocolate with him to the battle and after eating it asked Miss Lucia if she wanted to try it. Lucia told the guy that he had previously said his name was Heck. The guy replied that it was correct. The girl replied that he should address her as you. Heck said that he still couldn't do that to a man older than him. Lucia immediately drew her arrow and asked. She was still very young by elven standards. Heck held up his hands and said he didn't mean it, and he agreed to her terms. Lucia said she doesn't eat everything yet, but once she tasted chocolate, Lucia finished all of his chocolate and asked him if he had any more. Heck replied that it was the last one. Lucia said she was sorry. She wanted to savor the food she had enjoyed. Heck replied that he thought 3 boxes would be enough. Lucia said that since they had filled their stomachs, it was time to move on. No need to wait for the monsters here. Heck asked the girl, is this the boss monster's room? Lucia replied that it was correct. Heck told the girl that she had promised him a reward, so he agreed. What exactly is she looking for? Lucia replied that there was a good chance that the mage had left his spells in this room. Heck wondered if he'd agreed to help for nothing. Lucia told the guy to get ready, the boss was coming. Heck asked what he should do. The girl answered that there was nothing much to do. It would be enough to finish the job. Heck was surprised and asked what? Lucia replied that there were no other monsters. She could handle this one alone. Heck asked her, is she going to take him down all by herself? Is she sure she can handle it? And that monster looks very strong. Lucia said it was nothing. She promised to tell him something important, so let him watch carefully. It's called an aura. Heck was so surprised to see such a sight that he couldn't even close his eyes. He wondered what it was. Lucia fired her arrow at him, and it hit the target. Heck was surprised and didn't understand how she could take down such a huge monster with one blow. Heck asked her if she wanted to tell him about the tech. Lucia replied that she did. It's just amazing, right? It's called an aura. It's incredibly powerful. Heck asked if she was really going to teach him that. Lucia replied that was right, she had promised. The girl asked him how he was doing. Did he want to learn? Heck immediately answered that of course. A technique with incredible power, Heck thought. He couldn't even imagine such a thing. Lucia said that they had to finish with that monster boss first. Heck replied that he would handle it. Lucia asked him he knows where the nucleus is, doesn't he? Heck replied that naturally. He memorized what he had just learned, and he hit the target. Heck saw that his bat had failed. It was weak, he thought. Maybe one hit wasn't enough? Raising his head, he was greatly surprised. The monster immediately attacked, but Heck had time to apply his protective shield. Lucia herself was surprised too. It seemed very familiar to her, the technique and aura itself. Heck didn't get lost and lunged at the monster, saying that if he couldn't do it in one go, he would beat it until he smashed it, and began to launch such strong attacks that he shattered him into small pieces. The system immediately popped up and said he was up to level 185. Heck apologized and said it took a little longer. So now she's going to teach him how to use his aura? Lucia asked what was he talking about. He had just used it, hadn't he? Heck was surprised and asked. The girl replied that yes, he did. He had just used divine power to apply the aura. Heck asked if she was talking about the skill by any chance. Lucia asked, a skill? She doesn't know what it is, but it seems like he could learn it much faster. Heck asked, really? Lucia replied, yes, really. He has the priest's crassus, right? Divine power is an altered aura. Heck said that meant he could use it even now? The girl replied that she didn't even know. It depends on how he uses the technique. Heck was immediately excited and said he was ready to get started right away. Lucia replied that they had some conditions. At this time in the city, Head Ho asked his assistant where exactly were the strange phenomena seen. The girl replied that it was in the vicinity of Gangnam Station. They were spotted yesterday. Within 5 days strong monsters will appear. This girl was Ho's secretary and her name was Lee Hina. Ho said he thought their guild couldn't do it alone. Lee asked the head what does he suggest. The other major guilds are overseas. They are the only ones left in Korea now. Ho asked, and why exactly in the heart of Seoul? Lee replied that she was currently searching for hunters who were freelancing in Korea. Ho said that there was one among those who remained normal. And then he noticed Heck, who was coming from the other side. Lee asked the supervisor where he was going. Ho answered the girl to go back to the office. He had some business to attend to. Lee asked him where he was going all of a sudden. Ho replied that he'd rather go. Lee asked him where he was going all of a sudden. Ho replied that he'd rather. Heck bought all the chocolate the store had and said he thought it would be enough. Ho caught up with the guy and asked him what he had gotten himself so full of here. Heck replied that he didn't know what he was doing. Ho asked him if he had thought about his offer. Heck replied that if he was joining the guild, he thought he had already explained everything to him. Ho asked, then what about the mercenary? Heck was surprised and asked, a mercenary? The head replied that he would pay generously. Heck said he would think about it. Meanwhile, Lucia was enjoying the chocolate and said it was delicious. Heck thought that there didn't seem to be any food like that in her world. Lucia clutched her stomach and said she was full. Why is she in this basement? They already destroyed the boss monster, didn't they? The girl asked if he could see that pattern on the ceiling. Heck replied that he could see, so what next? Lucia replied that it was a magic circle. Didn't you recognize it? Heck was surprised and asked, is that what they call this thing? Lucia asked him, hasn't he heard of the magic circle? What world does he live in? The girl decided and told him to forget. Just let him remember that for her this dungeon was a way into his world. She'll be here for a while to do research, so if he wants to learn how to control her aura, he'll have to bring her lots of chocolate chip cookies. Lucia agreed and asked, then would they start right away? Heck was surprised and asked why she needed his hands. Lucia replied that it was the fastest way to master the aura. Let him concentrate. Now streams of aura would begin to flow into his body. Let him memorize the sensation. And so they begin. Heck felt something flowing into his body. Are those blood vessels? But no, he thought, it's something else. Some kind of internal force. In a moment Heck's eyes widened several times. He felt that he could sense her. And that is an aura. Lucia was shocked and realized that this guy had some pretty good abilities. The movement of divine power was simply unprecedented. She thinks he can learn the basics today. Heck looked at his hand and didn't understand. He seemed to grasp the principle. Lucia said she could see that he wasn't completely talentless. Will she be able to remember this current? Heck got very excited and replied that yes. He asked the girl where she went. She said she was supposed to explore this magic circle. Lucia replied that the circle problem can't be solved now anyway. It would be faster if he mastered the aura first. Heck asked, what? Is there any way to do that? Lucia replied that of course there is. This practice. And so Heck and the girls got to the monsters and started fighting. Heck fought alone against them like a great warrior, and didn't even think of giving a backhand, and destroyed them all. Heck told the girl that she told him she would tell him how to use the aura. Why did she just make him hunt monsters? Lucia replied that she had promised that she would share it with him so that he would understand the principle. The rest he would have to learn on his own. It remains for him to activate the aura with the help of divine power and master the technique. All the more so, there is nothing like practice to do it. Heck said he should have said so right away. How could you just throw him to those monsters? Lucia looked at the battle and said that a person is more concentrated just in a critical situation. Heck replied that he didn't care. The girl told him to concentrate and feel the divine power he was using. That shield was also summoned using aura. It was only worth it to understand the principle and he would easily learn the technique. Heck actually realized that it was easy only in words. Lucia told him to act now. Let him think about the feeling when he used the shield. Heck immediately used a protective shield with ease. He thought, what should he feel from this skill? But he decided to try again and felt something. It was as if some kind of energy had entered him from the outside. He can feel it gathering in his left hand that activated the skill. This is the divine power, thought he. Heck pulled himself together and decided he had to try again. And he used the sacred shield straight away. But something seemed strange to him and he stopped abruptly. What was it, he thought? The shape of the sacred shield was strange. And after waiting a minute, if that's what it is. He can't even take a break. He has to keep fighting. Lucia said she told him to focus on the sensations and not make stupid mistakes. Heck replied that he did just as she said. But suddenly he saw that he had a skill out of the blue. And it turns out then, he had a way to gain new skills besides changing classes. But Lucia drew her arrow and said that golems can be difficult to deal with during the aura training phase, so here she is to him. But at that moment, Heck told the girl to back off. He can handle him on his own. And immediately attacked. He saw that the golem wasn't giving up either, and as he dodged the attack he thought to concentrate, to remember the sensations. After making his crushing attack, he decided that it required him to put all of his mana into his bat. After destroying the golem, he realized he had almost succeeded. One more time. Need more concentration. Heck went to another level in the same second, and his mana completely covered his body and his weapon. Lucia couldn't believe such a thing. After all, this guy had already started using aura. At this moment, Heck sighed and took a breath. Heck rejoiced and felt that he had really succeeded. The system immediately said that he had mastered the skill. Application of Divine Power Stage 3. Precision Strike. He now realized that with divine power, he could now use new skills. Heck said loudly that it was very cruel. Lucia walked up to him and said not bad. He did well. Heck replied that he thought he understood the principle. Lucia knew in a moment that he was capable, but she didn't think he could apply his aura so quickly in battle. Did he do something wrong? Lucia replied that no, he was good. She was going to tell him in a nutshell and be done with it. But as it happened, Heck realized that thanks to Lucia's training, he had 3 passive skills and another active skill that he could use in battle. Lucia came up to him and asked if he had rested enough and immediately pointed an arrow at him. Heck was frightened and asked what she was doing. The girl replied that we should move on then, and released an arrow. It hit the wall, which exploded. Lucia told the boy if he started, he should finish the job, shouldn't he? And then the wall elves came running out. Heck said that this elf was worse than any demon, and if he'd known this was going to happen, he would have taken a mana potion with him. Damn it! And he decided he was gonna fight to the end. Chul asked Mr. Hayek, "Did something happen to him?" The guy replied, "Nothing much. It's just so hard for him." Chul thought at that moment, what's the matter? It was as if he had been to the battlefield. Chul said he understood and said he would buy anything he brought the corpses of goblins, kobolds, and orcs, and about that alcohol he gave him last time. And immediately Hek realized the point of the conversation and relieved himself. Hek took a case of booze and said that as soon as they said it was traditional soju from a true master, they started buying it up. And with such popularity, you don't have to worry about money, just selling vodka. Selling soju for 150,000 when it's selling for 2,000 in a 24-hour market. He's like Robin Hood. Hek realized only one thing: the heavier the purse, the lighter it was. It felt as if all worries had disappeared. The guy came home and lying on the couch felt that this time was really hard. He thinks for a few days in a row he will only sleep, and after talking to Lucia, he felt that she was from another world. The skills that are common to them are simply not present in her world. It uses mana flows rather than keywords to activate, so it can't use skills as easily, but it can use them in different ways. If you take that to heart, maybe. But he fell asleep abruptly, and opening his eyes in the morning he asked, "What other disaster warning is there?" At this time in the city, the head was saying that there was an emergency. They are asking citizens who are on the street to go to shelter as soon as possible. Hek opened his phone and asked what date is today. Could it really be the day the monsters appeared? But it's faster than expected. He lay back on the couch and said he didn't know anything. He's tired and doesn't want to do anything. Some guild or association will figure it out for themselves. He realized that it was a chance for him to kill at least a small monster before, but it didn't make much sense now that he was mopping up the dungeons. He'd better get some sleep, but suddenly his phone turned on and he asked what was even going on with him. But it was a warning 3 times the size of a threat. And Hek decided that was a different conversation. Hek walked outside with his bat and told the monsters to hold on. Usually the monster invasion is randomized, but there are also regular appearances. The police would meet people and tell them to go to the underground shelter. Once a month, around the end of the month, these large invasions occur. The police said that if they breach the wall, they won't be able to control them. Let them focus more on defense than offense. Head Ho also went out to hunt, and while launching his crushing attacks told his fighters to keep their defenses up. People said that the guild leader and the top-ranked hunters would deal with the monsters. But Ho saw that there was no end to them. Yoon was also on the hunting team and understood that this was different from a normal monster invasion. Ho saw that his hunter was in an awkward position and could die. He yelled to the guy to dodge and destroy the goblin. The boy thanked the head for saving him. Ho told him to be careful. There was no telling where the monster might come from. Ho saw and realized that out of options were limited, strength was running out. The warrior spoke to an ally, and did he see how the guild leader had dealt with that ogre in one blow? Lee watched the battle and saw that the guild leader was also gradually losing strength. The situation was becoming dangerous, but there was at least one hunter who could help him. And then he suddenly saw the boy fighting and destroying monsters. Hek felt in the moment of battle that it was as if someone was calling him. He immediately picked up the phone and asked who it was. The girl replied that her name was Lee. She is the personal secretary of the head of the Titan Guild. What's the name of the guy she's talking to? She asked. Wasn't it Kong Hyok? She wouldn't happen to be calling because of the monster invasion, would she? Lee asked her, how did he know? Hek replied that he was just in the neighborhood. If she decided to call him, it means the situation is not good. He didn't think the guild members would treat him well. Lee says she understands if they may have hurt him in some way. However, it's more important to stop the invasion now, which is why she's calling him. Hek told her to start by having her listen to him. Lee immediately said that they would give him a reward on the terms he would name. The guy immediately replied that it wasn't a bad deal. He'd like to go by achievement, but 5 times as much for one monster. If she agrees, he'll sweep them all away. Lee said that judging by the fact that he was out hunting now, he was somewhere nearby. They'll discuss the details when they meet, especially since she has something to give him. She would wait for him outside the cell phone shop in the Gongyun building. Lee confronted him and told him that she could not promise 4 times as much. Hek replied that when they spoke on the phone, He had clearly said he wanted 5 times as much. Lee approached him and told him that, to be precise, he has a C rank and grade of priest. He asks him to consider her offer with a reward of 4 times the normal amount. Heck agreed and replied that they would assume he was making concessions to her. Lee immediately remembered and placed the object on his hand. The guy asked what it was. Lee replied that it was a tool that measured the magic power of monsters and converted it into points. Simply put, a monster counter. But suddenly several monsters came at them, and Heck told her to lie down and easily knocked them both out. The meter immediately showed that he had 2 goblins and 2 points. Lee said that this is how points are marked here, depending on the level of the monster. Lee looked at her phone and said that currently the frontline hunters have already earned an average of 82 points each. If he expects to be sufficiently rewarded, he should earn more than this figure. Heck asked her if she knew what real healing was. Lee replied that she didn't even know. The ability to raise the dead. Heck replied that destroying whoever was doing the damage was the ultimate in healing. And now he was going to show her that. Lee saw that even if Heck managed to defeat Yoon, still his abilities are not good yet. She hoped that he would turn out to be what the guild leader expected. Heck got caught by the goblin, and as he attacked, he told him to make the monster look closely at what Lucia had taught him. The system immediately jumped up and warned that the application of divine power had activated stage 3. The hunters asked who he was, how strong he is, where did such a hunter come from. Heck realized that with this technique, he could easily destroy monsters stronger than his level. The warriors asked again, who was this hunter? Did he kill that ogre with 1 blow? A rank A hunter at the very least. Heck tells the guys that they are quite right. He was now stronger than this rank they had assumed. Heck drank the protein and realized that thanks to Lucia's training, he was now level 200. He originally didn't have that much strength to fight an ogre, but if you maintain mana, he's stronger than a rank hunters. He has 1,500 of these mana potions in his inventory. That means all those monsters will be his profit. Yoon killed a monster in the moment and wondered, what's the matter? And why are there fewer monsters? The hunters at this moment said that no one and a rank hunters could handle them. Yoon immediately understood and said that it was the one. The hunter was surprised and said how could he not know a hunter who had such abilities? Yoon called out to his comrades what were they thinking about. If they're done, hurry up and help the others. What's that lousy guy doing here? There's a limit to his insolence. How dare he show up here? But it's even better this way. He had been careless that day, but today he would teach him a lesson. But Heck sensed the danger immediately. Turning around, he retaliated with the bat and said that again all sorts of nutters were pestering him. He was busy as it was. Ho saw the huge monster and immediately felt a bad feeling. Mana was almost at 0. Why did such a monster appear now? The buffalo immediately raised his hammer and began to attack. Ho thought, first we need to replenish our mana, but then Heck came running and told the head to lend his shoulder. And immediately he seized the buffalo by the horns and laid it on the ground. Ho immediately saw that Hunter Heck was the way he had come. He had recently reached C rank and he was already able to take down a minotaur. Ho realized that his instincts hadn't failed him after all. Heck said he seemed to have lost consciousness. Could he finish him off? Ho replied that of course he would, since it was his credit. Heck immediately raised the bat above his head and said he would not refuse. The system immediately popped up and warned him that he had destroyed a minotaur and his level had been raised. Ho walked over and told Huck that he knew he would leave him behind, and thanked him for his help. The guy replied that he got a call from his secretary. He was just taking a chance to make money. Ho held out his hand and asked if he joined their guild. Henceforth he would have many such opportunities, and he will make sure he gets credit for his accomplishments. He hopes he'll make a positive decision. Heck said that we need to deal with the remaining monsters first. Ho answered the guy, and it turns out he's not easy. Lee called the supervisor and said that an unexpected thing had happened. Ho asked what had happened. She replied for him to look up. Looking up at the sky, he didn't understand and asked what was suddenly wrong with the weather. Heck asked, why did the cloud appear only in that place? There was thunder and lightning in the sky, which was released directly into the monsters with great speed. Ho told Lee to report the situation. What's even going on? The girl replied that this cloud captured the monster's reaction. But one thing, its body length reaches 500 meters. That monster released its lightning again, and directly hit the guild leader, but he managed to defend himself. Ho asked Hunter Heck if he could handle it. The boy replied that he thought he would be fine. Heck asked what kind of monster was that. Ho replied that it was the first time he had ever seen such a huge flying monster. His skills wouldn't work at this altitude. Is there no way to attack him? Heck asked. Ho replied that he would have to look for it, but in the meantime he would have to go to the guild and find out what the situation was. If it was okay with Heck, could he go along with him? The boy didn't take any chances and agreed. Ho came to his guild hall and looked at the cameras. Lee said that the lightning rod had no effect. The head asked how to get close to it in the air. Lee replied that they already tried with the drones, but they couldn't get close, it crashed them all. And getting close by air is difficult. Lee said the monster hits any target within a 1-kilometer radius on the ground and in the air with 100% accuracy. Ho thought one strategy and said he'd have to attack from an ambush that his lightning bolts couldn't reach. Heck was thinking at this time and realized that it wouldn't be easy. You need a man capable of destroying a giant monster from a long distance. But where could he get one, he thought. But suddenly it occurred to him that he had Lucia. Heck turned to the boys and told them to listen to him. He thinks he's found one way to catch this monster. Wouldn't they like to try it? Han Suk, one of the Titan Guild leaders, asked the head if he really trusted this C-rank priest. They couldn't even find a way. What could this hunter offer? The hunter also told the chapter that he was able to hit from a distance of 300 meters. And it's only 300 meters away, and he's quite capable of destroying it with a single blow. Ho said he had already said during the briefing that it destroys a target with 100% probability within a 1-kilometer radius. Do they have a way to solve this problem? Is Hunter suggesting such a thing? The hunter immediately started to deny it and said that he had misspoken. Lee went over and told the boss that since the situation was such that we would have to wait for help from Gidia. Ho replied that no, they can't rely on them. Jisha is a guild that only has a rank mages. With their abilities, it would be possible to deal with this monster, but they don't care one bit about the safety of the residents. They will only focus on catching the monster. If they just watch him from the sidelines, there would be less damage. At this point, the only hope left is Hunter Kong Hyok. The head said that if that failed too, he would risk his own life and try to get close on his own. Heck brought Lucia to his world to help him with the monster. He thanked her for her help. Lucia said she didn't have much to do, so she agreed. In return, he would get her sweets from his world, as they had agreed. Once outside, Lucia began to say that the air here was very dirty. It felt like her life was shortening with every breath. The girl told the guy that he was not bad living in such a place. Heck replied that there's nothing to be done, you have to live. But how will she be able to destroy this monster? Lucia was surprised and asked him who he thought she was. She would fall into such a huge monster even with her eyes closed. Heck said he asked her if she could destroy it. It's a leviathan monster, 300 levels. That's the highest level ever. Lucia took her arrow and told the guy that only he would have to help her a little. Heck asked what was needed. Lucia replied that the environment here looked too fragile to bear its power. If he didn't want to see the buildings collapse, he'd better help. One more thing, we need to solve this problem. Heck called the head and said he had a question. When this huge monster falls to the ground, it will destroy buildings. It can't be avoided. Is he ready for that? Ho immediately replied that of course he didn't need to worry about that. Let him only think about catching the monster. Heck said he understood and warned the head to get ready, because it was about to start. Heck told Lucia that he had made up his mind. Let her begin her preparations. The girl was surprised and replied that she had already done everything. She said she could shoot at any moment. Was he ready? Heck used his defense and replied that he was ready. She immediately released her arrow that Heck even felt it all, and didn't realize that she was so strong. Lee was telling the chapter that 2 projectiles were rapidly approaching the target. 1 second left to the target, and that's when it hit. Target is completely down. The monster is down. The hunters were surprised and couldn't believe it. Heck told the girl that although she had said the force should be contained, but was it too much? Lucia replied that this world was too weak. Couldn't they handle such a monster? Heck replied that she was just too strong. The boy said that he thanked her anyway. Lucia replied that she wasn't helping for free. He immediately handed her the body-reading object, and he did ask for it back when they destroyed the monster. Could this really be proof? Heck replied that that was the system here. Lucia started to leave and told him to be careful. You shouldn't trust people. If there's a big score at stake, it's easy for a person to lose her mind. She was often betrayed when she was a hunter. Heck told her not to worry. Once he noticed something, Lee told the ringleader that it was Heck. Ho told the guy that he did an incredible thing. The guy replied that he was just lucky. Ho asked the guy if he didn't mind. Could he tell him how he managed to destroy the monster? Heck apologized and replied that it was a secret. Juice flared up and asked him what other secret? He didn't do it himself, so he can't tell. Heck told him if they don't believe it, let them check this. And then he gave him a body-sniffing object. Juice took it and asked in surprise, 240 points? That can't be. The head has 173 points. Lee said it was the meter she gave to Hunter Heck. The probability of fake results is 0. Juice said the guy could then provide later when the bounty was being handed out that he was here waving at them. Heck replied that guild head Ho had promised him something. He was the one who caught the monster, so naturally he should take care of the reward himself. Yes, and the guild master had given his consent. Sun asked the guy, does he even know how much that monster's corpse is worth? Does he think his stupid arguments are working on the Titan Guild? If he wants to finish this case without any problems, Ho immediately told Soku that he shouldn't act like that. The Titan Guild is not poor, why would he say that? Doesn't he know that the guild's authority is more important than any money? Suk realized his mistake and apologized. Ho replied that they would talk at the guild and let him go back. Ho told the guy that he apologized. As he promised, he would pay, and also secure all rights to that monster's corpse, and he hopes they can continue to fight together. Heck realized that he couldn't trust the Titan Guild, but he thought he could be trusted. Heck thought for a moment and replied that he hoped so too. Suk at this time pondered to the head at this time thinking about the benefit of the guild, and he took the side of this hunter, although the Titan Guild still needed him for now. But if he continues to behave like this and hinder the development of the guild, then he will have to take action. The hunter asked his comrade if he knew what the rumors were. It's about that monster that appeared in the sky. It was officially announced that it was destroyed by the guild leader Titan Ho, but it was actually done by some S-rank hunter. The guy said it couldn't be. How could an S-rank hunter handle such a strong monster? That's why the guild leader personally offered him to join the guild, but they say he refused. The hunter replied that how confident was he in his abilities, since he had been personally contacted by Sam Ho. The Ultron Guild Scout was on the phone and said that Hunter Yoon had good abilities. The man said he'd probed the ground, and it seems to be the work of that C-rank hunter. Scouter replied that meant the rumors were true, and he would find out more about him. Scouter said he thought that Hunter was a C-rank hidden class. The guy asked him if he was in too much of a hurry. Hidden classes don't occur very often. Scouter said that it was because of the 3 hidden class members that their guild was able to rise so high. He couldn't let it go to another guild. Either they would take him first or destroy him. Heck slept during this time and woke up in the morning asking how long he had slept. He opened his phone and said he didn't think he'd been laid up for 2 days like a murdered man. It seems to be his body's reaction to the overload. He should order something to eat first. Going out into the other room, he was surprised. He suddenly saw Lucia. She asked him too, was he awake already? Heck looked around and asked what she had turned his house into, but Lucia said nothing and just ate. Heck collected all the wrappers and said he collected it all to give to her and she gobbled it up in 2 days. Lucia asked what could she do if it tasted good, especially since it was the only thing she found edible in this house. Heck said then she could go back to where she came from. Why was she waiting here for him to wake up? Lucia replied that she was looking after him while he slept. All the more reason to leave at once if she could. She didn't want to be in a place where the air was so filthy either. Heck asked what she was talking about. Lucia replied that he hadn't opened the entrance to the dungeon for her, so she couldn't go back there. What's all this nonsense? The door leading to the dungeon is right here. Let him look. It's in the same condition. Lucia asked what was the matter, and when she tried there was nothing. Indeed. And immediately she asked him to move away from the door. The girl opened the door and made sure there was nothing. Was he now convinced by her words? Lucia asked the guy he didn't know that either. Heck replied that of course not. The entrance to the dungeon was always open when he was there. Lucia replied that it was quite possible that Crazy Mage had placed it in the interdimensional travel pointer. Heck asked if she could explain it more simply. Lucia answered that it turns out the ultimate goal of this dungeon is him, so it opens where he is. Heck asked, so what if something goes wrong, will the dungeon fall on his head? The girl replied that he was savvy. Good thing that magic failed. Heck said it seemed like the luck of his life. Immediately, he grabbed his stomach and asked, "Why still no delivery?" The delivery man immediately knocked and apologized, saying it was very strange. He made several circles around, but he couldn't find his apartment. Heck told the girl that a delivery had arrived and invited her to eat too. Lucia asked, "Is it sweet too?" The guy answered that not really, but it's delicious. The girl asked him how he found this place. There is a recognition reduction magic overlaid on his house. Lucia replied that the magic of reducing recognizability. No one can find his house even if they know the address. Simple but effective magic. Heck asked why she'd put it on his apartment. Lucia said that while he was asleep, some strange people came here. The guy asked, "Strange people?" The girl replied, "Some guardians and Ultron. People from the guilds came and said something. They were so annoying that she cast magic so they wouldn't interfere anymore." The guy got curious and asked why such big guilds needed him. What had happened while he was asleep? He immediately opened the news and read that Hunter Heck, who had defeated the huge monster, someone had also posted a video, and they gave a non-disclosure order and the media couldn't enforce secrecy. Lucia asked him why he wasn't eating. What's he doing over there? Heck replied that he didn't know if it could be called a problem. The problem was that he had become too popular. The girl asked him, was he crazy? Heck realized that he wanted too much. He passed off merit as his own so that it would be profitable for him. But behind that came fame, which he is unable to handle. There is too much hazing in the guilds. As soon as even the slightest competitor appears, the race is on with them. Heck said that he wanted a monster body and ended up with an unnecessary headache. Though why regret what had already happened? Heck told Lucia if she had eaten, have her get her gear and go to the dungeon. Heck realized that what he had to do now was to make sure he didn't encounter any hunters or guilds, and become even stronger. He will raise his level, kill monsters, and get more powerful items. The elf said he hadn't seen such a large leviathan in a long time. But why did he only bring the head? Where's the rest of it? Heck replied that there was a torso, of course, but the insides had rotted away and were no longer useful. Lucia also said that he was too weak and couldn't take the arrow. The elf said he doesn't appreciate raw materials at all. That's why there's no use for ears like him. The elf told the girl to stop spreading her elf smells in his house. Lucia got angry and told him to give back the arrows he promised. Then she would leave on her own. The elf asked her what, no arms or legs? Let him take it and get out. Heck asked if there was anything that could be made from this head. The elf asked, did he bring it without knowing anything? The elf touched the head and said it was still alive, and immediately pulled out an orb from it, telling him to look closely. It was the most valuable part of the leviathan carcass. Heck asked what it was. The elf replied that it was the thing he used to shoot lightning bolts. The boy said that it was the thing that produced those lightning bolts. The elf told the kid that he guessed right. If he put an enchantment on his gun club, he could shoot lightning himself. Heck asked him what he wanted as payment. Let him just say the word, he would pay. The elf replied that he didn't need the ward, but if he wanted to help him, then chase that lug out of here. We can't have her in here. Heck laughed and said that he seemed to be a little on edge before such an important matter. Let her take it in stride. Lucia immediately drew her arrow and said that this time she would make a hole in his head. Heck said for her to be patient. He's a little rough, but he's kind at heart. Lucia asked the guy what the fuck is he talking about? At what point is he being kind? Heck replied that he would buy her the most delicious candy. Just let her be patient. Heck wondered if Lucia had a curse that made it possible for her to eat sweets. A normal person would have gotten diabetes a long time ago. Maybe he should just buy sugar right away. But suddenly he stopped and felt something. After mastering the aura technique, his senses were heightened. But he also sensed that someone was watching him now, and that made him very wary. He had to be careful. Heck immediately pulled out his bat and told the man to stop hiding like a rat. Tell him to come out immediately. Suddenly an assassin ran out and said he couldn't believe he could feel his presence. Assassin made his first attack and Heck was able to repel it. Not bad for a C-class, he said. Heck asked who was he. Why attack him out of the blue? The assassin was surprised that the boy had blocked him again. So the rumors were true. That power can't belong to the C-class after all. Heck immediately jumped on him and said that he would just beat the answers out of him. Assassin realized one thing at that moment, that hitting him head-on was not the answer. He had to change tactics. So he used disguise. Did Heck hit the ground and wonder if he's gone? No, he could still feel his presence. So he used the skill to hide. He felt the attack the second he felt it, and managed to set his bat up in time to keep it from hitting him. Heck made his attack and realized that it was even harder to sense him now. He could only catch his energy during the attack. If he'd had his usual bat, it would have been easier. As luck would have it, I left it at the old man's. This is definitely not the way to go. We have to get out of here. But the assassin came out and attacked from behind asking where he was going. He's attached a tracker, so it's only a matter of time before he's caught. He's like a rat in a trap. Did the assassin say he escaped to such a human place on purpose? That's clever. But he will inevitably be alone, and that's when he's finished. Assassin was ready to follow him to the end and kill him to finish him off. Assassin followed him and realized the signal had stopped at this mall, and the only place in the neighborhood where he could be alone. And then it occurred to him that it might be the bathroom. Once inside, he used his powers of disguise and leaked straight through the wall into the restroom. This time, for sure, he would end it. Opening the bathroom door, he saw his chip lying there. And then Heck runs out and says with an attack that disappearing in such a tight space won't help him. But the assassin managed to dodge and make an attack, but which the guy dodged, and immediately grabbed his arm. Heck said if he didn't want his head smashed in, let him tell the truth. Why did he try to kill him? The guys put up a sign that work was being done. At that time, a father and his son came to the toilet and said that they can't come in here. Can't he be patient? The boy replied that he couldn't. The father opened the door for him and told his son to make it quick. The boy said he was a slug and let his father watch the door. But suddenly the boy saw Heck beating the guy with a bat and froze for a few moments. Heck was surprised and realized that he had put up a sign for just such an occasion. He told the little boy that it was dangerous here. The assassin saw this and realized that this was his chance. He immediately used his fiery palm and attacked. Heck managed to dodge and told the boy to get out of here. The boy was scared and screamed that it was fire. The assassin attacked the guy with a firestorm, but Heck had time to see it and used his protective shield. Heck thought he was crazy. There was a child here, and he's attacking. And then the father ran in and yelled to the boy. Assassin was able to save his life, and it was a tough day. After all, his superiors said he wasn't very strong. And now there's nothing to be done. Mission failed. We must retreat and try again next time. Heck immediately caught up with him and asked him where he was running to. Did he think they'd just let him go? And put his bat in his back. Heck realized he'd gotten too angry and overreacted. This is his first kill. It was self-defense, but then the system said that killing him increased his karma. That's so gross. And the system notified him that he wouldn't get the villain title for justifiable homicide. And the cleric skill was changed, and the guy also fulfilled the hidden condition for the second-class upgrade. Heck was surprised because he had gotten a class upgrade. Heck was sitting on a chair at this time and said that when a hunter kills someone, he gets the title of villain. And it blocks the cleric skill, so he thought it was over. But what if the class changed? And then people came up to him and asked him, is his name Heck? The man said his name is Ken Yen from the Detective Department's Hunter Division, and asked him to cooperate with them. Ken said the guy was attacked by a mage hunter, and being in danger he used a magic skill, right? Heck answered that was correct. There was a baby nearby, but that didn't stop him from using fire magic. Is the baby okay? Ken replied that he only had a minor burn and nothing serious. And then the boy said that the boy and his father had asked him to convey his sincere thanks. Heck replied that he didn't need to. It was enough for him that he had no serious injuries. Ken said it was all due to his quick reaction, so there shouldn't be a problem with declaring it self-defense. As soon as the investigation is completed, Heck was surprised and asked if it was that easy. Ken replied that his feat is also accounted for, And yes, the laws work differently for hunters, but really, there is another reason. He didn't get the title of villain, did he? Heck was surprised and asked how he knew. Ken replied that the title of villain only comes after an intentional murder. And in the case of self-defense, it doesn't arise. That's why it's their secret. If he keeps his mouth shut, he'll skip the trial. But if he told anyone, they were in trouble. Heck replies that he understands. And he promises not to tell anyone. Ken immediately pulled an object out of his pocket and said that it was risky for them to rely on his words though, so they should take precautions, and hoped he would understand. He handed him an object and asked him to carry it with him. It's a tracking device. If he says 3 forbidden words, they will receive a signal. The forbidden words are murder, villain, and self-defense. If he doesn't talk about today's events and mention the forbidden words, there won't be a problem. They'll take care of the rest. And the guy had been through a lot today, so he'd better go home and get a good night's rest. Heck replied that he understood and thanked him. The guy was telling the person in charge that this was the hunter who was rumored to have caught a new type of monster. He doesn't look like a Class C hunter. Ken replied that he had blocked the firestorm almost unharmed and protected the child. He also managed to deal with a mage hunter of a rather high level himself. So it wasn't just a rumor. It must have a strength far beyond Class C. That's something special. But suddenly the system popped up and said he had a judge class. Heck immediately thought it was a hidden class. He had hoped to get it, but not like this. Instead of explaining, just he tested out. First of all, treatment and baiting Lolan replaced the skill with hard skin. It reduces damage from attacks. And status resistance skill that increases resistance to poison, sleep, and paralysis. And now he understood why it was called a transformation. The effects of the skills remained, but they became more defense-oriented. He could no longer use Holy Aura, but he now had a skill, Martial Spirit, that turned martial will into aura. And instead of a Holy Shield, he has access to a defense charge that allows him to attack defensively with the power of a tank. Heck looked at himself and said that he would become a real tank. And now his fighting skills have confirmed. But there's also the skill of persuasion. It determines karma. And then when he opened the camera, he saw that he could now see numbers above people's heads. I wonder what good that does. Is the number above your head a Karsa? 64? Is that a lot or a little? Another skill related to the meaning of karma. In other words, he gets stronger when he fights bad guys. A skill that matches the hidden judge class. Pushes him to hunt bad guys. Heck came to the elf and said that he could now fire lightning bolts from the bat. The elf said that the lightning bolt is rechargeable. You can charge it up to 3 times. One charge takes 30 minutes. Heck, he tried it and told his uncle it was amazing. But how to use it? The elf said that luckily there was one kobold in the courtyard who had been caught trying to rob the workshop. Just then a wolf ran out and the elf asked why not test it on him. Heck asked, how do you shoot lightning? Do you have to cast some kind of spell? The elf replied, who has time to cast spells during battle? Just have him present the discharge. Heck thought about introducing. He likes to cast spells. It's so cool, isn't it? And he used lightning at the same second. With one blow, he destroyed the wolf. He immediately thought it was amazing. This would make future battles much easier. Lucia told Huck if he was done checking things out, it was time to talk. She asked him what he was doing outside. Did he think she wouldn't find out? She no longer felt any divine power from him. And what is this suspicious object? Don't tell me he's not planning to do something weird with them? Heck replied that of course not. She had gotten it all wrong. He tried to tell them, but he couldn't. Lucia said that something changed his divine power to something else. The elf said that, and the reason he couldn't explain everything in the subject. So we'd have to deal with this toy, and then we'd have to chat. Heck was thinking at the same time. The elf said he had to do one errand for him first. Heck asked, what was it? The elf replied that it was no big deal. Just have him do one simple task, and then he would spend his precious time dealing with that trinket. The elf handed him an object and said that he would need it for an errand. Heck took it and was surprised, for it was a compass. Lucia asked the elf, is he serious? Is he going to send him there? The elf replied that even a stupid newbie could handle it. And he volunteered, didn't he? Heck was surprised and asked, was he being sent to some dangerous place? But what kind of place is that? At this time, Heck started rappelling down the cliff on a rope. He asked why they were mining or here. Lucia asked him what was scaring him. It's just a cliff. It's nothing special. And then she started moving the rope. The guy yelled at her to stop. Lucia told him to just follow her. Keep up. She immediately rushed downstairs. Heck said, easy to say, he's heavier than her after all. Lucia asked, really? Maybe he's just afraid? In her opinion, they aren't doing anything out of the ordinary. Heck thought about her words and decided that maybe that was true. But if I don't care? And straightway he let go of the rope with his hands and threw himself into the cliff. Lucia told him that he had succeeded. She asked him, had he lost his holy power? Heck replied that was right, which was why he'd brought the weird thing. Lucia asked if it could be taken off. The guy replied that he usually didn't. But the old man said it's okay, so he probably has a way to help. He's a real handyman. He can be trusted. Lucia replied that he was reliable that way. About measuring karma, which is why he was looking at them so strangely. She asked what her karma level was. Heck replied that it was 82. The highest among the three of them. Lucia said she hadn't lived an easy life, so it wasn't surprising. She had to survive. Heck said that since the difference between them is only 20 points. Lucia replied that they don't know yet whether 20 points is small or big. In her world, there were sometimes saints who could tell the difference between good and evil at a glance. Heck said he was very far from a saint. Lucia asks, who's to say he's a saint? She simply says that such an ability exists in her world as well. In any case, now is not the time to look for the mine. They need to fully understand his abilities. Heck asked why she was so interested in his abilities. Lucia replied, because he's interesting. They won't learn anything about levels of karma just by sitting there, and they better get out of here. If he's afraid they'll be attacked, she'll protect him. Heck thought what to do. Old man, I'm sorry, but he wants to settle this matter. Heck said she was right. Let them get out, and immediately pulled the return stone from his pocket. Heck angrily and confidently smashed it and said that they had to solve this problem first. And at the same second, a portal opened. Once in the city, Heck asked the girl, was she sure her disguise was working properly? Lucia transformed into a beauty and replied that she was sure. She hid them both. Let him not worry. Heck asked why they were being stared at then. Lucia replied that she couldn't hide her beauty, no matter how hard she looked. Heck said that's not the point, although perhaps beauty plays a part too. Lucia told him to stop talking idle talk. They better summarize what they have learned about the karma system. Heck replied that karma seems to accumulate when she does something that is considered bad. Breaking a promise made to the dwarf increased his karma level. But if she harms someone and it is mutual, the karma level remains the same. It's not entirely clear, Heck said, what counts as a high or low level. But one thing is certain, if the level of karma exceeds 200 units, she is recognized as a villain. Lucia asked why that was so. Heck replied that killing someone with a karma level of 200 or above doesn't carry a penalty. It seems that killing someone like that is considered self-defense. The girl asked, 200 is the limit, right? Even she and the old man don't have karma above 100. So finding someone with a level above 200 would be difficult. Heck said she was right, and so far he had not seen anyone with karma above 50 among the people. And he told the girl to get up. They would explore another place, a place where very bad people gather. Lucia asked, do they really walk around here with flashlights at night? Aren't they afraid of attracting monsters? Heck replied that unlike his world, monsters don't roam around here. Lucia said that although the air was not very good, Heck replied that every world has its pros and cons. But suddenly a guy met them and said that Lucia was beautiful. The guy said their bar is running a promotion right now. Beautiful ladies get up to 5 free cocktails. Lucia immediately shushed him and told him to get out of the way. Heck stopped her and said it was free. Maybe they'd have a drink. The guy got excited and said he would treat them generously. Let them follow him. Heck immediately rejoiced, for he saw that he had found the scoundrel, and he had 300 points. Sitting down at the bar, Lucia said that alcohol in this world is sweet. The boy at that time rejoiced because he had just drunk poison, a drop of which paralyzes the whole body. And then he gave a sign, and the guys said that they would now deal with the guy. Heck immediately replied that they should just try it. He immediately used the skill status resistance, neutralizing poison, and directly knocked one of them out. Lucia opened her eyes at this time and said that she only meant to pretend to be asleep, but had actually dozed off. She turned around and asked, who were these guys? Heck asked what did she think they were. Just bad guys. The guy asked his men to do something. But one of the big guys told Huck that he'd had his fun and now that was enough. And he went on the attack. Lucia asked him if he needed help. Heck confidently told her that no, he could manage on his own. The guy called Heck a bastard and asked why he was ignoring him. But Heck stopped his punch with his one hand. The guy wondered in that split second, what the hell? Why couldn't he move his arm? The guy asked him if he was a hunter. Heck replied that he looked like one too. But for some reason he plays a bandit. The guy wondered, what is he doing here? That's too bad. He should run. But Heck held his hand firmly and began to squeeze it slowly. He struck his head with all his might, causing the boy's face to twist. The superintendent was surprised and didn't realize what was going on. Heck didn't let go of him and grabbed him by the throat. Heck said he had a lot of questions. The kid yelled for him to let go. Heck said he wouldn't let him go. Heck beat him to a pulp and said it's not the first time he's done it. Who's covering for him? Tell him right now. The guy slowly asked Heck what he meant. Heck called him scum and asked again, why is he walking around unpunished? How could he hire all these thugs? It's impossible without someone's support. This is his last chance. The guy replied that there was no one. He was telling the truth. Heck noticed that he denied it either out of extreme loyalty or because he feared his patrons more than he feared a beating. Heck immediately took off his boot and figured he'd have to be a little tougher. The guy tried to resist and asked what was he doing. Heck asks the guy what he himself thinks. He's just helping him talk. The guy asked him, does he think it will make him talk? Heck replied that they would see soon. But then Lucia came up and asked the guy why he was making it hard on himself. Let him step aside. She decided to use her magic. The guy got really scared and asked what the hell was that all about? He's from Ultron. Heck said he didn't look good. What had she done to him? Lucia replied that she'd just helped him confess. She didn't expect him to talk like that. The guy said it doesn't matter if he's from Ultron or somewhere else, it doesn't matter anymore. The Titan Guild will take it all down. Heck thought about his words and decided that it meant, was that Titan Guild behind all of this? Heck said that's the thing, but even if war breaks out, the forces are equal. What makes him think they can win a massacre? The guy said it was Alron's elixir. Heck was surprised and asked what it was. Going upstairs, Lucia said it was getting really serious. Heck replied that was correct. Who would have thought that they would encounter a large-scale guild? Heck said Alron's elixir is a potion that doubles all characteristics, but it requires the sacrifice of countless young girls to create it. He didn't think that the Titan Guild was in the business of making it. Lucia said that it was amazing. She didn't expect to find such crazy people here. Did the elixir exist in her world as well? Lucia answered yes. They had something called the Queen's Tears. Her childhood friend was sacrificed to create this elixir. When she reached the platinum rank, she got rid of that organization with her own hands. Heck said that's why she looked so depressed. Lucia asked what they were going to do. Heck replied that they say the elixir will be ready soon. We should destroy them before then. At this time, at one salon out of town, a suspicious man called his boss and said they had a problem. The boss asked what the problem was. The stranger replied that Park Min-jae is dead. That doesn't sound like an internal conflict or the work of another guild, but it was strange that they only killed him and left right away. Their people or other guilds wouldn't do that. The boss said that by all means let him find the perpetrators. The guy answered him that everything would be done. On the Titan Guild's overseas business trip, Lee told the group leader that the result of this trip in Hong Kong is exclusive. Lee said that if the first half performance continues like this, it could be good. And the idea of recruiting 15% more guild members. Lee asked the master, he didn't look well, was something wrong? Ho asked her, had she ever heard of Aluna's elixir? Lee replied that no, it was the first time she had heard that. Ho replied that it is normal. The association is trying its best to cover it up. And he just asks out of curiosity, but it's hard for her to go back to Korea now, isn't it? Lee replied that it's difficult because the inquiry is not finalized yet. But what exactly is going on? Could she issue an urgent order for the guild to move out immediately? Lee was surprised and asked. Ho replied that their Titan Guild was now declaring hostile relations with the Tyrant Guild. Lee was surprised and asked him what he meant. Ho replied that if they didn't prepare now, they would fall into more chaos. Ho said that if the information is true, It will be too late when things start happening. Lee asked him what information is so serious that he's making such dangerous choices. Lee told the leader that he knows this as well as anyone. This order is practically a declaration of war on the Tyrant Guild. Ho replied that he was aware of that. Don't let her worry. The Ultron Guild and the government will be on their side. Lee said that even war carries huge risks. Shouldn't they at least consult with their exes and make a more cautious decision? Does she happen to think he's talking nonsense right now? Ho thought about it and saw that the look on his face said that he had already made up his mind. But he's usually so cautious, yet he still came to this decision. But still, no matter how he looks at it, this decision is too much. Ho said he understood perfectly well that she was surprised. For now, let her announce it privately within the guild and to the preparatory investigators. But they will hold off on an official announcement for now, as far as the investigation is concerned. Lucia asked the guy if he had gotten a response from the trustee. Heck replied that he had. They would contact him again as soon as the investigation team was ready. Lucia said that at least there were still sane people out there. Heck replied that if no one agreed, he'd handle it himself. And if they already know what Alon is, that reaction is expected. And by the way, isn't she coming back? Lucia asked him. Did he think she would go back to the dungeon and miss all this fun? Heck said that if they're crazy enough to do such a thing, then they're not ordinary people. Lucia asked him if he couldn't handle them on his own, right? Heck replied that it was true. Lucia said then the guy should let her help, and suggested we take down these scumbags together. Heck thought for a moment and thanked her for her help. But suddenly someone knocked on the door and asked if Kong Heck was here. Lucia asked who it was, and Heck himself replied that he wasn't expecting anyone. But at the door they said it was a delivery. Could they open the door? The guy looked at his sensor and said that the guy covered in Park Min-jae's blood wasn't far from here. He thought about it and found out that this house was just his imagination, or the house looked a little fancy. As he arrived at the house he remembered and asked, wasn't this the home of a hunter who had caught a new kind of monster? But does that mean that this person, the one who attacked the stage? But it doesn't matter anymore. He'll just catch him and ask him. Heck went to the door and asked the stranger who he was. The guy answered from behind the door that it was a delivery guy. Heck immediately thought and realized that there was no way the delivery could be at this hour. Besides, the recognition suppression spell was still in effect in the house. And if someone got over it and came here and is now pretending to be a courier, this guy immediately attacked Heck with his darts. But Heck was stronger and managed to dodge. Heck said he knew that and asked if the deliveries now came with poison darts as a bonus. The guy at this moment was greatly surprised and couldn't believe that this hunter had blocked his attack. Lucia at this point had already loaded her bow and shouted to Huck to move away from the target, and released the arrow. The arrow went straight at the guy who attacked them. She told Huck to step aside. She would finish him off herself. Heck replied that no. He'll figure it out on his own since he's here. It's because of what happened at the bar. Lucia told him to be careful. The fact that he was still moving after being hit by her arrow meant he wasn't just a guy. The guy watched them and thought, what kind of woman is this? And one arrow had done it to him. And now he has to back off. Heck came out after him and asked what was going on. Is he running away? Lucia asked what are they going to do, chase after him? Heck answered her to leave it alone. He'd probably come afterward, and anyway, he's here. Heck said this guy's karma's over 900. That means he's the kind of guy who kills like nothing happened. Heck told the girl that it worked perfectly. He wondered how to clean up after it. And he could use this guy. The next morning she and Lucia drove out of town and suddenly the driver told them they had arrived. And this is the scene of the investigation. The driver said that, and even if the guild leader instructed, he asked him, leading them, let them be careful. And there are still a lot of people in the Titans Guild, and who don't like him. Careful attention is required. Heck immediately looked at them and saw that half of them seemed to be stuck at a rank hunters and above. And they are an elite group. But suddenly, Heck noticed one guy and wondered if he was the one who had put up a fight back then. Could he be the one in charge of this operation? He immediately sighed and felt like he had a bad feeling this was going to annoy him. And then Guy says his name is Hanun Suk and he's in charge of this operation. They met during the last air attack, but I'm not sure if Guy remembers him. Heck replied that of course he remembered everything. And today Suk is quite kind, not like last time. Sok coughed after saying that and said that he apologized. and he got a little carried away thinking about guild business. Sok told them to let him take this opportunity to apologize, and he hopes the surgery goes well. Suk saw a girl and asked who was she. Hek replied that it was his co-worker. She's experienced, so she won't be a nuisance. Sok looked at his warriors and asked with surprise, his counterpart? There was no mention of that. And suddenly 2 mercenaries came down and said that the scout team had returned. Suk told the boys that he understood and apologized to them. He immediately thought, what can some C-class wench boast about? And the most important thing is to accomplish his goal. Lucia turned to Huck and said that the man seemed suspicious. What are they going to do? The guy replied not to worry her. It won't go the way he thinks it will. Lucia listened and told the guy that this guy had been following them for a long time. Hadn't Hek noticed? Why does he let him follow them? Hek answered the girl to ignore her. He had a use for him, and let her have the item. Lucia asked what it was. Hek replied that it was a communication item. It allows you to contact anyone within a 10-kilometer radius, and it would come in handy. Let her keep that item safe. Suk came up to them and said that their report had been true. It seems that the Tyrant Guild is really into human trafficking. Hek asked what they were going to do about it. Suk replied to the guy that what he really wanted to ask them for was a favor. Hek asked in surprise. Sok replied that during their investigation they discovered a strong barrier around the building. If only one person could get through it undetected. Juice told the guy that's what it is. Could he help them? Hek replied to just tell him straight up that he wanted him to risk his life. Sok said of course not. They just need them to do some reconnaissance. I mean, he's very experienced, and the guy even caught that new monster, didn't he? Oh, and it would be easier for him to work alone than with members of their guild he hadn't had the chance to work with. Hek understood Sok from different angles, and the fact that he doesn't want to risk his lives. But they don't know one thing. This is exactly the situation he had hoped for. At the moment of the attack, the mercenaries tell Hek to listen carefully. The plan is actually simple. They will create a hole in the barrier through which they can pass. And as soon as it opens, let the guy get inside. Hek replied that he understood everything. It was okay to proceed. And suddenly they stopped abruptly and mercenary said that the hole would only be open for a few seconds. So let him hurry up. The mercenaries abruptly opened the portal and told Hek to get his act together now. The guy ran with confidence and decided to check out what they were hiding there. Hek was surprised to see his surroundings and asked, "What is this?" After all, it looked different from the outside. Did they use the barrier to distort the exterior? Hek started to walk around and said he would look for the entrance for now. Hek suddenly crept up behind the wall and was saying that there were fewer guards than he expected. He saw that there was a man standing guard. And if they're guarding this place, then this is the entrance. And when he attacked him, he knew he had to take this guy down. Hek swung with all his might, and at the last moment he missed. The boy asked, "What is this? Was it an illusion?" That was a little awkward. He was going to use it to open that door. How's he going to get in now? Hek went to the door and suddenly he saw it open. But why was it so easy? Hek wondered what kind of negligent security was this? Apparently there aren't even any security cameras. Do they think ordinary women can't escape? Hek thought hard and decided that he didn't know. But it was worth backing up just in case. Amy's creation device made from electric monster materials. Hek let it out and said it would shut down any communication or security system. His phone would also be out of service, but just in case. He left Lucia an item to contact. Hek released a violent wave of energy that spread throughout the area. A mercenary came to the area and said that first Park Min-jae died. Now the secret collaboration with the Titan Guild had also surfaced. And it seems like these guys suspect something, but that's only to his advantage. Thanks to Kong Jin Hyuk, this case might be easier. The guy who was in the invasion area was on his cell phone, and all of a sudden his phone abruptly turned off. The guy thought it was strange. He asked what was going on. This backwater really annoys him. Turning around he saw only a bright light that startled him. But Hek immediately released his bat and sliced through his jaw. Hek finished this guy off, and it looks like this guard with Karma 800 was. This place is a dumpster fire. But you don't have to hesitate to shoot. Hek started looking around the area and said it looked like a prison where they kept the kidnapped women. But suddenly he saw a woman's legs and said that was too much. Do they really think people are fertilizer? But suddenly some unknown person asked him who he was. Heck knew immediately from his voice that it was not a woman. The guy looked into the camera and said he didn't know him. Let him go before it's too late. Everyone here, they've all clearly gone crazy. Heck immediately thought, is this man from the Tyrant Guild? Sleep looked at his watch and said that it had been quite some time and it was still quiet. It looked like he had successfully penetrated there, inside, and now they'll be waiting nearby to intervene immediately if anything goes wrong. He immediately pointed his finger at the area and the mercenaries went straight to the scorcher. Sun looked at the girl and went to get his men as well. Lucia looked and thought, is it really time to act? But then she remembered Heck telling her that he could handle himself in the building. She should keep a close eye on the Titan boys, and that Sook might do something unexpected. But don't let her get into a fight. But Lucia said she'd had enough of this and went after them. Heck asked the guy his name was Jong Dae-yoon. He seems to be from the Tyrant Guild. But why is he in such a state? Yoon replied that it was just that he was trying to destroy Alon. Heck asked with surprise, what? And they let him live? Yoon replied that it was probably because of his ability. He can create illusions. Heck knew right away that this guy had done it. The guy told him he understood and asked why he wanted to destroy Alon. Yoon replied that he couldn't keep watching them feed monsters to humans. So he went for it. But he got caught, it didn't work. Heck thought that was surprising. A man like that in Tyrant? Still with a low karma score. Heck told Yoon that he figured the guy would help him. Yoon was surprised and asked if he would help. At this time in the coin room, the guy suddenly fell asleep, and upon opening his eyes was surprised that no one had caught him. The guy started to say that he felt sleepy every time at that time. But when he looked at the monitors he was surprised and asked, what is it? The guy started looking at all the electrics, and was saying the whole computer system was down, and ran to fix the problem. The guy ran to the break room yelling that they had an emergency. The system was down. The guards were surprised and asked what? The guy replied that all the women had disappeared. Looks like someone broke in here. The commander has ordered Group 1 to head to Alron's lab, and Group 2 goes with him to catch the criminal and the women, and ordered the guy to contact the main group by any means necessary. Did they understand? Yoon let every last one of them out and said there was still a little bit left, but the guard found them and told the team to come here. The women are running for the exit. The guard told Yoon that he had punished him before, right? He doesn't know how he got out. But this time he'll finish him off. But everyone pounced on him. But suddenly they saw a bat in front of their eyes, which put them all down. Heck didn't play with them, and wiped out every last one of them. He said that the way they were fiercely defending this place, it looked like the Alron were here. Opening the door in front of him, Heck realized that this was the same place. The Tyrant boys had hidden such a large structure underground. Heck started to consider and realized that these were all kidnapped people. And seeing it in person is even more disgusting. But then it must be Alron, the source of all chaos. Heck took hold of his bat and realized it was unresponsive to the spit. Heck decided to destroy everything here and get rid of him for good. But suddenly 2 human wires came at him. Heck at the moment he was surprised because he was moving, and they appeared to be very fast. But what could it be? Could they be tentacles? Heck saw that these were heavy attacks. One missed hit and he would be finished. And now he must wait for the moment to attack. Heck repeated to keep him calm. If he could handle the tentacles. This beast suddenly burst out of the vessel and pounced on the guy, hoping to destroy him. With his tentacles in action, Heck immediately realized that it looked like he was in the shit. And now he had to be more careful. Heck abruptly activated the impenetrable armor skill and started dodging all her attacks. Heck realized at once that dodging was possible, and if you think hard enough, you'll have to put an end to it. In the moment of the attack, Heck didn't have time to dodge, and the enemy made a strong attack and hit the body. Heck stood up abruptly and said it was powerful. It was certainly risky, and it nearly pierced his defenses, even though he had his chainmail. Heck said it wasn't easy to eliminate him. Did she understand him? And now they'll find out who's more powerful. Heck started to get serious, and in a moment dodged all of her attacks and even fended off an attack. Heck got very close to her, and even from his eyes a spark began to emit. Heck used his powerful attack and pierced through the chest of that monster with his bat. Heck got serious and stuck the bat in even deeper and told it to go away. Heck's energy increased several times, and the energy traveled through the ogre's body and exploded. Hek came to his senses and said he barely made it. But he saw some strange object in front of him. Hek asked, "What is it?" "Elrond's magic stone?" He took it in his hands and said he couldn't feel anything. "By the size and shape, it's clearly a magic stone." Hek put it in his collection and decided he would ask his dwarf uncle about it later. Hek picked up his censer and decided he was done here. And maybe he'd find out how things were outside? Hek pressed the sensor and asked Lachaya if she could hear him well. "How is her situation? Did the girls escape successfully?" Lucia replied that one man and several women went down the mountain. But they were followed by people wearing similar clothes. Hek replied that it was Tyrant. It seems he can be trusted, so they decided to act together. He's an ally, she doesn't have to worry. Lucia said she had figured it out. Had he dealt with Elrond? She asked. Hek said of course. He did a great job. And he brought the pebble. Hek asked her what she would say about the ones left behind. Lucia replied that they had been fighting as of late. As soon as the guys in white came out, the Titan guys threw themselves at them. But strangely, the ones in white ate something and changed, and the Titan guys started to give up their position. Hek said that means they ate something. Maybe the Elrond elixir? Their abilities have increased, but they've lost their minds and gone insane. And this time, Titan can't handle them. Hek said that it would be very unpleasant if the Titans Guild failed. Maybe she could help them? While you can't expect culture from the Titans guys, right now it's important to stop the tyrant men. Lucia replied that it was good. Is it enough to aim only at those in white? Lucia told the guy to trust her. And in return, when they were done, he would make lots of sweets. Hek said very well, they had pretty much dealt with those two. And suddenly told someone to stop hiding. The mercenary suddenly stepped out of the corner and replied to the guy, surprising him. He hadn't expected him to reveal his presence. Hek said he was his target. Or is he after all Ron? The mercenary took off his hood and replied that he had a common target with him. But it had changed, and immediately swooped down to attack. Hek accepted it without fear and told him not to regret the decision. After all, you can't leave alive. The mercenary immediately pulled out his knife and tried to finish the guy off with a single blow. But Hek easily dodged it. Hek punched him from his elbow, and the mercenary didn't have time to dodge and flew several meters away. The mercenary was immediately surprised. After all, such a reaction speed was impossible for an ordinary C-rank hunter. Wasn't the poison dart he blocked last time just a fluke? But after all, he's only a rank C hunter anyway. But Hek was stronger and kicked him in the head. Hek threw his bat right at him, but it missed and hit the wall. And in his next attack, he used an automatic return. The mercenary managed to dodge the attack, and picking a good moment hoped it would kill him. But suddenly launching an attack from behind, Hek managed to dodge with ease. The mercenary was greatly surprised and saw that this guy was wearing armor. The mercenary decided to attack once more, but Hek diverted the glittering knife, pulling his head back so he would miss. Hek launched his strongest attacks and asked the mercenary where he wanted to run away to. Hek used his electric attack with his bat and said he couldn't escape this time. The mercenary realized immediately that his affairs were very bad, and could not dodge, and used his shield. The mercenary managed to resist and spoke with amazement that he could barely block it. Looking around, the mercenary saw only fog and wondered where Hek could have gone. But Hek used that to his advantage, and headed to attack with his bat and stuck it into the mercenary's chest. The mercenary told the guy it was pointless. There was no way the guy could be that strong. Hek replied that he wasn't as weak as he thought he was. The mercenary replied that it couldn't be. Hek said no, he won't have the next time, and this place will be his grave forever. After the invasion, mercenaries said all the bodies were removed and burned to the ground. The mercenary told his men to take care of the wounded, and he would go and report back. Juice was bandaging his hand at the time and thought tyrants, who would have thought they were hiding drugs? If that woman didn't help them, they would have died. These arrows, their strength was almost at the S-rank level. Juice thought at that moment, had a female hunter ever been this strong? Just then, a mercenary came up and told the man in charge that he was reporting the situation. The wounded have been taken to the hospital, and all possible evidence has been processed. Sok told the mercenary that a good job had been done, and now that they had dealt with the tyrants, and suggested they find inside and finish the party properly. But suddenly someone shouted at them to wait a minute. Sok was surprised and asked the guy, Hadn't he betrayed the tyrants? Yoon gasped and replied that he had a message to deliver. The tyrant guild leader and their main forces are on their way here. Suk asked in surprise. Guild leader Cho Won-chul of the tyrants would be coming here? Yoon replied, that's right. Suk immediately thought that if a rank C hunter, Cho Won-chul, was coming here, they didn't stand a chance. And would they really have to go back to the past when they just had to defeat them? But suddenly the mercenary asked his own what was going on. The mercenary replied that they could see the tyrant guild hunters approaching. There are about 4 to 5 of them, they might be vanguard. The mercenary said that it looked like the guy's words were true. What should they do now? Sok thought he realized in his head that they had no choice. He said the operation ends here. Everyone retreat. The mercenary immediately ordered his men to all quickly evacuate this place. Suk asked the boy if he would go with them. Yoon replied that he wouldn't. He would stay behind and make up an alibi. If he disappears too, it will look suspicious. He will stay and file a false report, making it look like someone else did it. They must avoid a war between the Titans and Tyrant guilds, after all. Suk agreed and replied that they would do it that way, and they'll attach it all. And Hunter Kong Jin Hyok is inside. That would be the most natural expression, wouldn't it?